All right, good morning. I'm Rich Fomin. I'm one of the product managers on the DPD team, our data protection group. So as Mark just mentioned, I'm going to introduce you to something we're calling Data Protection Central. Data Protection Central is basically a new interface that we're introducing. Yes, it's modern. Yes, it uses HTML5 interfaces, UI technology. Yes, it's got a Mongo database underneath. But what the real value is for Data Protection Central is the fact that it provides an interface for customers to be able to manage their entire data protection enterprise from a single point of control. And I'll demo that to you, but I want to give you a bit of an overview. What does it do basically? 5 key deliverables. The first one, it introduces a set of key dashboards that allow the customer to manage from an exception basis. So instead of having to log into each Avamar, each networker, each instance of their data protection environment, they're able to manage it from a dashboard or exception-based basis. And I'll show that to you in a couple of minutes. From those dashboards, you're able to launch in context to the native element managers. Our goal ultimately is to mitigate the need to have to even go to those element managers. When I say element managers, I'm referring to the Avamar networker interfaces to be able to manage your environment. So the idea is to manage from exception where you have to launch into the native interface and then from there take an action in context. We're also integrating with our data protection advisor solution, the reporting solution. So instead of the customer again having to log in and establish another session with their reporting tool, we've actually onboarded the key top 5 reports for Avamar network or data domain onto this interface, and I'll demonstrate that to you as well. We've also got integration with something called DP Search. For those of you that aren't aware of what DP Search is, it's a way for you to index your backups so that you can search based on the metadata attributes of those particular backups. So what this allows you to do is basically do a Google-like search for any component of a backup. It'll return a results list back, and then you can initiate a recovery operation from there.
What's a component of a backup?
It could be a file name. It could be the last backup date, the last mod date, any attribute that's considered metadata.
You can't do that today?
Yeah, you can do that today.
Before this, you could not do that?
No, this is a standalone tool. What I'm saying is this is now integrated into the
DP Search existed already. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, Avamar had always had
You could always
lousy catalogs.
But you could search. You could always search, though. I mean,
you can browse.
You could browse.
With
you couldn't search
with
now.
DP Search, you can search on an attribute.
So with Networker or NetBackup, you could always search.
yeah, those had robust
But
catalogs.
Avamar didn't build the catalog. You could only browse. So recovering the file when the customer said, she's on maternity leave and we don't know what it was named and we don't know when we last saw it, but it's in this subfolder, could take a long time.
Well, there's actually 2 advantages or multiple advantages, but one of the main advantages of DP Search is yes, you can do you can interrogate the backup and then build a separate catalog that's searchable. But the other advantage is even the network or NetBackup, when you do
the catalog isn't built at backup time.
It's done post backup today. We're implementing a means for you to be able to do it at runtime, at backup time. So it is a post backup operation.
Okay, so I could get that call and not be able to search the catalog for several hours because I have to build it first.
Well, it depends how long it takes to build it.
It's not hours, it's minutes. Because it's not scanning through the backup, it's scanning through the backup metadata to build it.
Yeah.
You're not comfortable.
We can.
If I'm backing up millions of files a night and I have to search through 2 months of backups, I am dubious that you're going to build that catalog in minutes.
I'm going to build a metadata reference point so that I can search on those metadata indexes in minutes, yes.
Only text.
Demo time.
Okay.
It's only
So are we-
through files. You're not traversing a file system. You're just going through the
No.
stuff you already have. I think it's actually not as much data as you think, even if it's just file names and
If it's millions of file names,
text.
it's text, and you can scan that at gigabytes a minute, but it's going to be gigabytes of data. And so
A couple minutes.
you've used catalog and you've used index, and you've said the catalog is built post-process, and to build the catalog, it just has to scan the index. What's the difference between a catalog and an index? Is the index built in real time?
The index is built post backup.
I think the difference, the catalog
And
is
it
actually
built-
the tables, the index is actually the optimizations for search. So I think you're building a catalog quickly, but maybe not building indexes quickly. Maybe that's the difference, Howard. I don't.
I'm building an index that gets stored in a catalog, in a DP Search catalog.
Okay.
From there, then I'm able to do a Google-like search.
And that's a post-process.
Correct, today.
And My continuing problem with backup products is that the catalog, that the catalog gets stored small. So can I build a job that indexes all of that data in the morning after I've run the night's backup so that I maintain a catalog? And if I do, how far back can I go? And are there database size issues with that?
Well, you're going to have to, I'm not sure I'm going to call it a database size issue, but yes, you are going to have to allocate storage to create the indexes.
I'm not concerned about allocating the storage, but traditionally with Networker or NetBackup, administrators set the catalog retention to 30 or 90 days because this search starts getting very, very slow because the databases weren't optimized for the huge amounts of data that maintaining all of the retained data in the catalog takes. And so I'm asking, is it practical to maintain years worth of catalogs all the time? Or is the database not optimized?
I guess it would help to get a basic architectural overview of how that works.
Yeah.
I'm probably not the right person to do that, to be perfectly honest. Perhaps we should move on.
Well, we have a demo that'll show us how well it works.
Okay.
Demo.
It'll go very quick in the demo.
Sure.
Okay. And then we also have some active management. So the idea in the active management is, again, to mitigate the need to have to go to the native element manager so that you can do things like policy operations, search and recover operations, as well as being able to do on-demand backups. So from there, I'm going to jump to the demo. And I did not want to go to ECDM first. Where am I? So this is where I'll be logging in. Obviously, we said this was an HTML5 based interface. So this is your landing page. And basically what you're looking at is, as I mentioned, an exception-based dashboard. It's divided into 3 sections. One section looks at your backup activities, one section looks at your capacity across the enterprise, and one section looks at the health across your enterprise of your data protection systems.
So when you say data protection systems, is that covering Avamar and Networker or data domain, or what is it encompassing?
It's covering Avamar, Networker, and data domain.
Okay.
And I'll go into that in a minute. And to that point, you actually have a couple of dials to play with. One of the dials is that you can select the time range that you want to look at. So at the beginning of my shift may be 8 hours, my shift may be 1 hour. I can select which time frame that I want to look at, and you can see it dynamically changes my view within that particular widget that I'm focused on. I also have another dial that I can play with, and it's a filter option. So with the filters, I basically have a list of all the systems that I've actually enabled to be able to monitor. I can select which systems that I want to see or not see, or I can create something called groups. And a groups is just a logical collection of systems. Let's say I have an East Coast group, I have a West Coast group, and I can move all the systems in the East Coast into the East Coast group and all the systems in the West Coast and build out my infrastructure based upon the types of environment that I have. Did I answer your question?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So again, as I mentioned, what you're looking at is the exception-based environment. Typically what a customer is going to do when he comes in at the beginning of his shift or the beginning of his morning, he's going to check out and look at what his environment, how it performed over the past 24 or last shift. So in this case, I'm looking at the last 24 hours. I see I have 3 failed backups. I click on it. It opens up a dialog, and it shows me in a table-like view which system I'm looking at, which job failed. In this case, I'm only seeing the failures. It gives me the status, the system name, the policy that's affiliated with that particular backup, and the start and end time. I can drill into that and get a little bit more detail, and I can see that this particular job failed. Again, it gives me the policy, it gives me the schedule that's affiliated with that policy, and it also tells me the clients and how the clients performed. Now, a backup is typically made up of multiple clients. In this case, this is probably a VMware backup, so I'm backing up, in this case, 7 VMs, and 2 of the VMs apparently failed. I can get into a little bit more detail by clicking on View Clients, and it gives me the details about those failed clients, and I can quickly see which ones were successful and which ones failed. From there, I can go back and I can either launch directly into the Avamar administrator through that button on the bottom and launch into that system. It'll link me there automatically. I can take that action, or I can rerun that job using the Backup Now button.
Hey, Rich, does this product, does Data Protection Central only manage EMC data protection products, or does it do others?
No, it's only EMC data protection.
I believe EMC does have a product somewhere. It does have some sort of an operations manager for other backup systems that are outside your world.
DPA, Data Protection Advisor, does support third-party, non-EMC, it's a reporting tool, and it does support non-EMC tools.
Right.
And we do have, this will interface in with DPA, but we're not exposing the non-EMC reports through this interface.
Very selfish of you.
Does this have an additional cost over and above the additional products it's managing?
It does not. So this is something that you're entitled to if you are a licensed current product on Avamar Network or
That's
Data
actually
Domain.
pretty interesting. Yeah, I see this as almost like the Unisphere for your backup products, right? Because the Unisphere managed all the different, storage platforms, right? Or I don't know if it was Unisphere or one of the other products that you had that managed VNX and VMAX in one. This is kind of like this for data protection.
Exactly. And this,
right.
the intention is to be able to manage across the portfolio from a single interface. I'm just going to go through a couple of the ideas here. So basically, from a capacity perspective, you can manage your capacity. When you have capacity issues, you can see exactly where you are. We give you a view of either Avamar, network, or data domain. You can see things like total capacity, metadata utilization, and so on. At the data domain level, we actually allow you to drill down into the M tree. So customers that are sharing out their data domains and they're exposing that to multiple backup products, they can see the utilization in the right-hand pane here, and you can see all the various M trees and how they're allocated. From there, you could actually launch into the data domain system manager if you want to take additional actions.
Do you have any plans? If I understand well, this is kind of a more, let's say, monitoring tool to get an overview of what's going on, right? This is not a management tool.
We have started building in management, and I'll demonstrate that to you in a minute.
Okay.
Does this connect to the cloud instances that we heard about earlier?
So I don't care where you land your Avamar network or data domain instance, assuming you have a port open and I can talk to it, then I'll be able to instantiate and be able to monitor and manage the activities that are going on in that system. As I mentioned, we have integration with reporting. So for example, here I have, these are the top 5 Avamar reports. In this case, I've already run this report, so I can view the last report. I just click on Run Report. You'll see it'll update the date timestamp, and I click on View Report, and it'll dynamically bring up the report here. I can also do things like system management. So as I mentioned, we can do policy management. I just want to show you how easy it is to add a system. You just basically go into Add, you select the type of system you're adding, you go through the workflow. In this case, if it's an Avamar system, I just click on Go, and it'll enter in some brief credentials, and it'll automatically discover the system. You asked about policy management. Basically, you just click on Manage Policies. We'll automatically discover the policies that are available on that particular Avamar system. Once I select a particular policy, I can edit it, any of the attributes of that policy, and a policy is comprised of a data set, a schedule of retention, and I can edit it or create a new one from this interface. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is the search and recover, the controversial one that I showed you earlier. This is basically the idea of being able to launch the DP search capability that we have available. And from there, I basically log in. I type in my credentials. And you can see here I have an interface that allows me, sorry about that, allows me to enter in any of the attributes about that particular backup that I want to look for. I can do a global type search. So, for example, if I want to look for my home directories, I type in home, it'll give me a results list. Or I can type in a combination of any of these attributes down here. Platform is things like, is it Avamar Networker? Client would be any client that's affiliated with that particular system. I can look for file type, file name, or a portion of that file name, the size, the last mod date, the last backup date, location, basically almost any of the metadata that's available. So just to show you what it looks like, if I want to, let's say, just do a global search on home, I type in home, it'll give me a results list, and any of these results I can click on and conduct a restore operation. I click on restore, and basically it'll give me the options. Do I want to restore it back to the original name, a new name? I click restore, the restore will run, and I can view the results of that restore.
I would love to see this product as a paid solution that would allow third-party integration for a large ops group or outsourced ops group to, like companies that merge and acquire and stuff. You get in all sorts of disparate backup solutions. This tool, is it simple to use from an operational perspective? And if it could somehow be like the Uber search across all the different platforms that are, I think it would be very valuable as a paid product, but only if it was open, not just across the EMC products.
Understood.
So now, Data Protection Central and Data Protection Search, are those virtual appliances or are they installed on like a Windows server?
No, so Data Protection Central comes as an OVA.
Okay.
We'll give you the bits if you want to load it on your own SLES instance, but we package it as an OVA and try to make it as easy as
Okay.
possible for you to install and upgrade.
So, but the Central and the Search, are they two different?
They are two different
Okay.
installs.
Okay.
So you have to load two different OVAs to
Okay.
be able to build them up.
Can I just ask you a few questions?
Sure.
Who's this product aimed at?
You mean the persona? We typically aim this at the backup admin.
Right, so is this somebody who's going to be looking at this on a regular basis or continuously during the course of their job?
Oh, no.
Is that the idea?
That's the intention,
So-
is to mitigate the need for them to have to go down to the AVMAR administrator
Right.
or the network administrator.
So when you looked at the homepage looked incredibly static. It wasn't really telling me a lot of what was going on. It didn't really give me a reflection of the history of what is going on with the backup environment. So for instance, it wasn't really showing me things like over time, my capacity throughput to see whether I've been hitting bottlenecks during the backup window, where the system wasn't able to cope with the demand, or all of the sort of things that are probably going to be the sort of real issues that a backup person would have. It just looks really static, and it'd be nice to see it a bit more with a bit more historical information on it.
I hear what you're saying. The initial, and this is our first release, our initial intention was to cover the more, what we felt like was the more exception-based processing, focusing on backup activity, capacity, and health. We are going to add more type of analytics, but this isn't considered an analytics tool. If you want to do analytics, we have other tools available for you to do that. We're building the linkages into here so it makes it a more dynamic use case.
Right, that's fair enough, and I can see why you would not want to put too much detailed analytics into it. But if I was a backup operator and I was looking at dozens, and actually Glenn made a good point about the fact that if it supports many platforms. I've worked in environments where we've had hundreds of backup systems running globally, and trying to put it into one graphical representation that shows exactly what's happening. I've worked in bigger environments where we've had dozens of incredibly large backup environments, where one of the biggest problems was as the capacity of the primary storage increased, we didn't really have a clue what the capacity of the backup environment was. So having the two and being able to see when we were going to hit problems would have been incredibly useful. So there are lots of scenarios where that historical view, either over the course of the day or the course of the week or the month, would be really, really useful to see. And obviously, if this is only version 1, fair enough, but those would be really interesting graphics to see, because it would help you avoid the problem before you've actually got to it.
Sure. So my takeaway is right now we're basically, what you're using the term static, we're actually showing you the reactive view, and you're saying be a little bit more proactive.
Yeah.
And show some of the metrics that would allow you to be more proactive.
Absolutely, yeah.
Got it.
Because the best backup is the one you don't have to rerun.
Right,
The
right.
ones that work first time and you never have to do them again.
Fair enough. Good feedback.
Just out of curiosity, what are the semantics for defining health in a
Oh,
system?
good question. So we built an algorithm. So in this case, I'm looking at two systems that are unhealthy. So for example, if I look at this AVMAR system, you can see the metrics here that we've looked at. We look at capacity. In this case, it's showing it as an unhealthy system because it has an alert. But we also look at the last time garbage collect was run. We look at the last time a checkpoint validation was run. And we also look to make sure it's a valid license. And that's monitored on a regular basis.
Going back to what Chris just said, can I click those links to go further into what's going on?
You can do a couple of things. One is you can scroll down, and for each of these we give a summary.
That's it. I don't want to scroll down. I just want to click it, and so there's an X standing. If you go a bit up,
Yeah, there's a fail.
there's a failed thing.
Right.
Just make it the link, click on it, and
And I
go
just
wherever
made
you
that
wanna
suggestion
go.
to our,
Yeah.
it's a valid point, and I just made that suggestion to our engineering team that we need to have a link there so that instead of going here to alerts, you can go there dynamically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I didn't mean to do that either.
So another quick question. You obviously have a lot of assessment tools. How are you tying up the assessment tools to the sort of things we're seeing here? Is there a consistency of terminology, of use of, because obviously we just picked out one terminology Eric just mentioned. Is there any consistency between the ability to run the reports and what you see here so that people can, analyze their environments and then see how it works in the tool?
Not today. I'll be perfect up front. Not today. Any other questions before I turn it over to Paul?
Good looking tool.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks, guys.